First stripe at 12, second stripe at 13, third stripe a year later, then pronounce the BG.
I roll. You know what I'm saying? I roll. I'ma back a nigga up off me. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know it. Like, you know what I'm saying? You know, nigga run up on me, you know I'm back him up off me.
You know, they be rapping to me and shit, you know, talking about, you know, they doing this, they slinging on, they riding this, they riding that, you know what I'm saying? And I really don't respect it and can't accept it because I know it ain't real. They fantasizing and rapping. You know what I'm saying? You gotta rap with reason. You gotta, don't just rap and rhyme. You know what I'm saying? Make it make sense. Like Pac did, he made it make sense and made a nigga won't listen to you. You know what I'm saying? I make a nigga won't listen to me. You know what I'm saying? Because I got a story to tell. If you got a story to tell your story.
You know, BG, he's a product of the uptown of New Orleans, 13th Ward, specifically Valence and Magnolia.
Repping the hood, VL 13, y'all already know what it is, man. Uptown to the bone gristle.
His mother was from Virginia, but relocated to the NO with her family as a teenager. And that's when, you know, she ended up meeting BG's father through a friend. His dad was from the Magnolia. He was only 12 years old when his father was murdered, unfortunately. And he actually was at his home before it happened. Some dudes came by multiple times asking for money. BG felt like, you know, something was off, and he decided to reach out to his mom and ask her to come and pick him up. You know, shortly after he left, his father was robbed, beaten, and shot. You know, he passed away. After the unfortunate loss of his father, you know, he jumped off the porch into the streets. He started hustling, stealing cars, playing with guns, hanging out with gangsters, and being exposed to violence.
I mean, you know, me and my pops was real close, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, that was pretty much, you know, the only person that really could chastise me, right? Or the only one that, you know, I really would listen to or that I really was scared of, you know what I'm saying? So when he, you know, passed away, like, you know, that pretty much let me off a leash. You know, I was able to, you know, the streets pretty much adopted me from there.
You know, it was around 13 when he really first started to take rapping seriously. The first verse that he wrote was actually about his father, you know, that he lost, a dedication to him. And from there, you know, he would just be rapping, man, writing raps. And he would go to the local barbershop in his neighborhood and spit freestyles there. And it was one day when he was at the barbershop, the owner, the barber, Big Stan, ended up contacting Baby, you know, a bird man who was also from that area. He told him to come down to the barbershop and hear BG rap.
Just so happened, Baby and Slim out the same neighborhood I'm out, you know what I'm saying, 13 Uptown, Valence and Magnolia, you know that. They started catching me on the records like around 91, 92, you know what I'm saying? So the barber off the block, you know what I'm saying, he knew I could rap, you know what I'm saying? So he went to Baby and them, you know what I'm saying, told them they come around the way, you know what I'm saying, and jammed me up and got me to spit something for them. And I spit something for them and they took me to the studio and the rest is history.
They took BG in, signed him to Cash Money Records. At that time, he was going by Gangsta D. Then he changed it from that to Lil Doogie. But him and another up-and-coming artist in New Orleans at the time, Baby D, who later would end up being known to the world as Lil Wayne, they formed a group called the BGs, short for Baby Gangsters. They put a project together on Cash Money. It was called True Story. That dropped in 1995. It mainly featured songs from BG. He was 14 around that time. Lil Wayne was 12.
Can't forget about who been around the longest, BG's. You know what I'm saying? Him and Lil Wayne with the BG together, but we still clicked up.
His Real Deal official debut project, Chopper City, that dropped when he was 16. It performed really well, sold more than 100,000 units independently. And you know, the rest was history from there.
Really and truly, you know, I nicknamed New Orleans Chopper City back in like 1995, and then Chopper City was the name of my second album, you know what I'm saying? And Chopper City kind of stuck with me, you know, that album that came out, you know, that was my groundbreaking album, the album that really certified me with the streets and, you know what I'm saying, made my mark in the game.
You know, a year after Chopper City, he dropped It's All On You Volume 1. In 97, that same year, he dropped It's All On You Volume 2. In 97, that's when BG, Lil Wayne, Juvenile, and Turk, you know, they united to form the Hot Boys and released their project, Get It How You Live, which that performed significantly well, man, and went on to land them a multi-million-dollar deal with Universal. Then, you know, Juvenile dropped that 400 Degrees, which, you know, sold millions and millions and millions of records. BG came behind him with the Chopper City in the Ghetto, had the hit Bling Bling on there.
How that song go?
Bling bling. Every time I come around your city, bling bling. Yeah.
The pinky ring is worth about 50. Bling
They told me
bling.
take that off, you hear me? Every time I buy a new ride, bling bling.
So how did that concept come along, man?
Man, that's just our thing. You know, we like to stunt, we like to shine. And you know what I'm saying? That's just another word for shine, and that's just our slang, bling bling. You heard me? You know, cause it's bling bling, it make you take a triple take and shit, you dig? Straight up.
So, you know, everything was going in the right direction for him, man. He was able to change his life, but at the same time, he was still in the streets, man. He was still hanging out with street-oriented people, and he also was battling addiction. You know, he had started using heroin. You know, in 2001, BG decided to leave Cash Money over a financial dispute with Birdman. He claimed pretty much that he wasn't getting paid properly, that Baby had brainwashed him, and that he was bird feeding him, really wasn't paying him what he really owed him, man, what he was making, what he was grossing from the albums, from the tours, and all of that.
I found out when we was on our Cash Money Rough Riders tour. You know what I'm saying? We was gone like 60 days. And nigga, you know what I'm saying? He was collecting like 165 G's a night cash. You know what I'm saying? And we was selling out every venue, 10,000, 15,000 people. You know what I'm saying? We was gone for 12 weeks. You know what I'm saying? I come back, you know what I'm saying? I buy me a brand new Benz cash, you know what I'm saying? He give me a check for 300 G's. But I read in the paper, the fucking tour done grossed 14 million. You know, I'm reading shit. Well, I'm seeing all these zeros, you know what I'm saying? You know, I'm one, but at the time, you know, I'm 16, 17, 18, you know what I'm saying? I'm riding around in a Benz, you know, I'm blinging, you know what I'm saying? I got stacks in my pocket, I'm on TV all day, you know what I'm saying? I'm on covers of magazines, I'm fucking hoes in every state, you know what I'm saying? I'm full of that heroin, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I'm you know, so I really wasn't seeing clearly, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I was happy, you know what I'm saying? But once I sobered up, you know what I'm saying, and started seeing clearly and got my mind right, you know what I'm saying? And if nigga love me, if you love me like you say you love me, you know what I'm saying, then you wouldn't want to see me, you know what I'm saying, destroying myself like that. So evidently, you know what I'm saying, you wanted me in that position so you could keep that sheet over my eyes so I won't see what's really good. I wouldn't want to learn the business aspect of shit, you know what I'm saying?
Once he decided to leave Cash Money, he signed an independent deal with Koch Records and started his own label too, Chopper City Records. Started dropping projects on there, formed a group, you know, Chopper City Boys, and had his own movement going, man. He was making his own way independently. It was his life after Cash Money, but he still was able to stay afloat. He still was able to sell a nice amount of units. It just wasn't the same as the units he was selling with that major machine behind him on top of, you know, that alignment to Cash Money Records. Arguably the biggest label, or one of the biggest labels in the rap game at that time.
You know, when I left Cash Money off a platinum album, you know what I'm saying? So when I left Cash Money and started doing my independent thing, you know, I was kind of disappointed at myself because I was like, fuck, I done left these niggas, I done went independent, and you know, I'm trying to show these niggas I can hold my own weight, but all I'm selling is 300,000.
He was on Koch for a few years before signing with Atlantic Records to release another major album, Too Hood to Be Hollywood, and that project was co-executive produced by T.I. But you know, he was finding himself in legal trouble throughout this time. He was getting arrested, getting caught with different guns, man, caught with drugs, you know, in legal trouble. Eventually caught up with them, leading to a 14-year federal sentence. He had multiple prior felony convictions and run-ins with the law. Between 2005 and 2009, he was arrested several times on gun and drug charges. But one incident in particular, back in November of 2009, changed everything for his life and his career.
I was pulled over. They said the blinker wasn't used, and they found 3 guns in the car.
Allegedly.
You know? Allegedly. I don't know if they put them in there. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if they magically appeared. You know what I'm saying? But
I'd rather not comment on the situation right now, but yeah, as of right now, I'm charged with a couple of weapons.
On November 3rd of 2009, BG was riding in the back seat of a Chevy Tahoe through New Orleans East with two friends in the front, Gerard Fedderson and Damon Pollard. The vehicle was flagged for a turn signal violation and pulled over by police. Once law enforcement ran the license plate, they discovered it was stolen from an Alamo rental car lot. Police ended up searching the SUV. They found 3 loaded pistols, 2 of which were reported stolen. They also found, some extended magazines and loaded clips.
Last week I was arrested. I got caught with a couple of pistols. I got 4 convictions. You think I want another one to send me away for life? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the last thing I wanted to happen. But in New Orleans, it's different from it's the murder capital. You know what I'm saying? You either get caught with it or without it. You get caught without it, you deserve to be shot. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you're living that life and you're somewhere you're not supposed to be, or you beefing, or you doing something you ain't got no business. You know what I'm saying? It's just real like that.
Damon Pollard, who was just 18 at the time, initially told officers that the guns were his, allegedly saying that they were for protection after someone tried to rob BG for his jewelry. But, federal investigators, they started to tap in and look further into the case, man, listen to the jailhouse calls that were being made, and determined that BG and Gerard Fedderson had pressured, Pollard to sign a false affidavit claiming ownership of the weapons because he wasn't a convicted felon. But yeah, man, things didn't necessarily go as planned. BG ended up being charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm, as well as 2 counts of conspiracy to obstruct justice for trying to, convince his homie to take the rap, man.
So at federal court today, Christopher Dorsey, better known as local rapper BG, pled guilty today to gun charges. Dorsey admitted that on 2 occasions, including on this YouTube video, he possessed guns, despite being a 3-time convicted felon. He also pled guilty to obstruction of justice for trying to get an associate to claim ownership of the guns. Dorsey will remain behind bars until his sentencing in March.
In July of 2012, he was sentenced to 168 months or 14 years in federal prison. His other 2 co-defendants, Gerard Fedderson, he pleaded guilty and received 20 years. Damon Pollard, he pleaded guilty and received 30 months.
Cause for real, when I got that 14-year sentence, bro, I thought it was over.
14 years.
You know what I'm saying? Them people gave me 14 years, 168 months. You know what I mean? And when they gave me all that time, bro, I really thought it was over with. Like, I thought they closed the curtains on me, you know what I mean?
He served around 12 and a half years of his 14-year sentence in the feds before he was released back in September of 2023. After he got out, he relocated from New Orleans to Las Vegas for a new start. He jumped back into the music game. He did a joint album with Gucci Mane called Choppers and Bricks. Started releasing a lot of singles. But he still ran into some issues after doing all that time in the feds. And it was all regarding his music. According to federal guidelines, BG was required to receive approval before entering into any form of self-employment, including music, something prosecutors argued he failed to do. Though prosecutors, they initially pushed to revoke his release or tighten his, the conditions of his supervised release, they eventually decided not to pursue further punishment, man. Fortunately, they didn't violate him and send him back to prison. However, they did place a spotlight on him and his lyrics. In 2024, a judge ruled that BG must submit any written lyrics to the government before publicly releasing them. And that ruling was part of a broader concern about whether his music was promoting, gun violence, bashing people who decide to cooperate, who decide to snitch, glorifying, criminal activity and, just a street life in general. Things that the prosecutors were saying pretty much violated his supervised release.
I'm gonna say, but, we just had one, misunderstanding and one thing, where we ran into some discrepancies at, and that was my lyrical content, right? So The judge gave me permission, you know, to go on tour, do concerts, put out my music, etc., etc. But while I'm on supervised release, how could I word it? They're trying to basically control my content and you know, tell me, you know, what I can and can't rap about. They don't want me, you know, rapping about snitches and, you know, about homicides and about this and about that. And, you know, at the end of the day, man, like, it's entertainment, right? You know what I mean? So, you know, just because, you know, you don't like the music don't mean, you know, you could tell me that I can't write about it or tell me that I can't put it out. I mean, that's what, you know, the First Amendment is in place for. And from my understanding, that's what the First Amendment is in place for, you know, where you can't, you know, parade on a motherfucker freedom of speech or a motherfucker right to express themselves. But they're trying to say, you know, that while I'm on supervised release, I don't have all 100% of the rights that's afforded to American citizen, and they saying, you know, I'm going through a rehabilitation process, and by me glorifying murder and, you know, glorifying drug dealing and glorifying guns, that, you know, I'm not being rehabilitated, right? But I come, you know, with the position that at the end of the day, it's only entertainment, man. I mean, I ain't nothing but Christopher Dorsey playing BG, you know what I mean?
BG, he got his attorneys together, decided to fight the situation. He pretty much was arguing that his First Amendment right was being violated. His right to freedom of speech was being violated. And he ended up recording an album and called it Freedom of Speech while he went through everything, man. It kind of was his way to express, you know, his frustration with the situation.
Before, they didn't want me doing nothing pertaining to rap or nothing pertaining to entertainment that I could make money off of unless I got prior written consent from the court, right? You know what I mean? I had to get permission to rap, period. And that's where the whole title for the album, Freedom of Speech, came from.
Damn, they told you you could talk, but none of that better not rhyme.
It messed me up, right? Because, you know, when you in the halfway house, you're still technically a BOP inmate. I was in the halfway house and I did the album, you know, with Gucci Man, the Choppers and Bricks. You know what I mean? I did the feature, you know, with Kevin Gates and Red. We shot the video, you know, did all that. So the halfway house had gave me permission, you know, to go to the studio, you know, shoot videos, you know, do the album or whatever. And soon as I got out of the halfway house, bam, they came for me. You know what I mean? Like, once I start being governed by the United States probation officer, they was already waiting in the cuff for me. You know what I mean? And they was like, you violated. Man, I read the paperwork and yeah, they said, you know, that the song I did with Kevin Gates was a violation of my probation. The album I did with Gucci Man was a violation of my probation. You know, the song I did here was a violation. And I'm like, a violation? I ain't did nothing but. And they was like, yeah, man, nah, you ain't supposed to be doing no rapping. You ain't supposed to be doing none of that unless you get prior written consent from the court. And then that's what, you know, I had to hire all these attorneys and, you know.
But, you know, as of now, you know, BG, he remains free. Hopefully things will continue to go in a positive direction for him, especially after he's been able to make it through that prison bid and persevere through all of the challenges he's gone through professionally and personally in his life, man, from, you know, battling with addiction to the ups and downs in the music industry, losing a lot of people to gun violence, so on and so forth, man. But he's back out here, he's back free. But, you know, since he's been back out, he's been definitely vocal and encouraging a lot of the youngsters who may look up to him not to follow in his footsteps. You know, he's been doing a lot of community outreach in his interviews. He's not really glorifying the street life. But yeah, man, salute to everybody tuning in. Salute to BG, man. Definitely a pioneer out of New Orleans. One of the people who put Cash Money on his back and helped them become what they are today. Made a lot of timeless music. Talented brother, man. Hopefully he'll continue to take things to the next level. You know what I'm saying? But shout out to everybody tuning in and rocking with AHumbleSoul, man. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit the button ASAP, drop a comment, share it. You know what I'm saying? All of that is greatly appreciated. Until next time, I'm gonna holler at y'all 100.
Like this shit, you know what I'm saying? That that click shit, you know what I'm saying, just look good, you know what I'm saying? I mean, niggas be running around with these big old entourages, you know what I'm saying, and these big old cliques, you know what I'm saying, and you know, I mean, everybody ain't your partner, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, niggas be hating, you know what I'm saying? I mean, real niggas don't have nothing to prove, you know what I'm saying? You know, they got a lot of niggas, you know what I'm saying, riding around, you know, spinning, you know what I'm saying, riding around in these Bentleys, you know what I'm saying, riding around in these Benzes, you know what I'm saying, riding around in all these big old cars, you know what I'm saying, and they living in an apartment complex, you know what I'm saying, paying a couple $100 a month rent, you know what I'm saying, then they got these niggas, you know what I'm saying, on some keep it real shit with their partner. Now if your partner throw a stash right there and the police pull up and you on probation and he ain't on probation, you know what I'm saying, and the people walk up and say who that's for, you know what I'm saying, how real he gonna be, you know what I'm saying, is he gonna take his lick or is he gonna let both of y'all ride, you go back up time and he a first offender, you know what I'm saying, I'm a nigga like this shit, I'm on paper, so if my partner right here and he got a gun right there and the police find it, he either gonna take his charge or I'm gonna give him his charge, cause I'm gonna keep it real with myself before I keep it real with a nigga who ain't gonna keep it real with me.